Welcome everybody once more to the Humminbird Hub. Again, we have a very interesting persona present in our space. Alex Roseman, multi-award winning inspirational talker.
Yeah, you could say that. I'm a talker.
A breakthrough coach and the alchemist, whatever that would mean. So I'm going to give it over to you to define what that is.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, it's really awesome to be here. Be in this presence to just the beautiful view that you have from this space. And so I'd love to be able to share anything I can to help whoever is watching this. So where would you like me to start? What it is to be a speaker or talker?
How did you get to where you got? What motivated you? What brought you on this path? Because this is a very how you say it, energy consuming path, if I may say so. Know that from my experience.
Yeah.
What brought you here?
Interesting that you say energy consuming, because when you really find something that you love to do, you know what it is because you have more energy at the end of the day than when you started with. So that is a good indication to know, am I on the right track? Is this something I want to do? And when you're inspired, when I help people have that sort of inspiration comes within, and people are looking for motivation, right? I'm looking for motivation. If you're looking for motivation, like I had a client yesterday who was looking for motivation. I said, that's external. It's outside of yourself. You're looking for it, but it doesn't last. It's like treating the symptom, not the cause. So if you're needing motivation in something, you could ask yourself the question, why am I needing motivation? Why am I not inspired to do this? Is this what I really want to do? And if it is, how can I find that inspiration again? What is my why I'm doing this? Because when you have that, rather than being a push, because that's what it is, your motivation, you feel like, I need to do this, I'm pushing myself, and that's exhausting, that is energy consuming. But when you find inspiration, then you feel like you're pulled towards it. Like doesn't matter what it is you do, you wake up, you just pull towards it. It's like, it's not even any effort. And then you may not know how to do it, and that's where you have to become resourceful. And we're all resourceful when you put under some amount of pressure, right? And it's that leap of faith. And I'm always, if I have anyone who's in front of me, you don't know it logically. Sometimes you just need to jump off the cliff and grow your wings on the way down. And that takes faith, that takes a sense of, I know I can do it. I don't know how, but I know in myself I'll be resourceful enough. And that's when you become inspired and you take that jump and you're excited because you know you're forced to grow in some capacity, and you get to learn more of who you are through that inspired action to get closer to what it is you do want and knowing more of what you don't want. And it's just knowing how to say no and how to invite what it is you do want into your life. And that's how you know yourself, right? We've had that conversation. And for me, that is, I think it'd be a crying shame to not know yourself when you get to the end of your life. And you only know yourself when you're willing to take that inspired action and keeping on and keep doing it and learning from this journey of life. And I feel that a lot of people just, don't know how to start, don't know how to take that first initial step.
So you would like to be an example of that?
Well, I feel like I am, because of just the craziness of my jumping with like having no safety net at all, and go, you know what? I've got to walk the talk. So I better just do it and see what happens. And there's scary times. Sometimes you wake up at night and you're like sleepless nights going, oh my God, it's just really, the hot sweats and the things that wake you up at night, and you're really freaking out going, am I really resourceful? Can I really do this? And that's when you're really tested. And, we're fortunate enough that, if people are watching this right now, they're probably not going to feel like their life is at stake because they're doing this. They're jumping out their comfort zone, but we're not in a position where it's going to be like it's our life. It's just a fear, natural fear. And I talk about this on my workshops and my online courses. It's about resistance. And we don't want the resistance. We want to get to where it is we want to get to easily. Like it's just like, here you go. Oh, thank you very much. But then if you were to climb at the top of that mountain, you want to get to the top of that mountain, whatever that goal, that vision is, if you were just planted on top of it by a helicopter, you probably wouldn't be able to survive up the top because you haven't climatized, right? So in order to be able to sustain being at the top of that, you need to take the steps and grow with each step you take. You know, you climatize at each level, each step, you learn who you are, and it's the journey of who you become when you get to the top of that. It's not like, there you go, you're at the top of it, and you're like, okay, great, because there's no, you haven't really learned, you haven't grown from that. So it's the resistance, and I describe it as like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and you pick up no weights and you're just using your hands doing this with no resistance, you're not going to grow any muscle, right? But you need that resistance to go against in order to grow. So every step that you're taking towards what you're doing, you're going to be met with, failure, feedback, and you get up and you keep moving. That resistance is what allows you to grow spiritually, allows you to grow to become the kind of person who can stand at the top of that mountain. And people just don't want that resistance, but you got to realize that's what you need to accept, because when you have a vision big enough, you're going to bring in resistance big enough for you to become that person who can have that vision. But people resist the resistance. If you stop resisting the resistance,
that's a big one.
You just allow that go. Oh, that's part of it. Oh, okay. Well, I'll stop resisting the resistance. Because that resisting the resistance stops you from growing, and then you feel like you're dying inside.
It's such a conflicting way of saying it. Like, resist the resistance. It's like a path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you can take that in a couple of ways. Like path of least resistance. Like, oh well, it looks like it means I should do nothing then because there's less resistance. But you want some resistance to grow against. You see what I mean? So
you're basically utilizing the resistance in your favor.
Yeah.
You have the right tools to use that resistance as something that pushes you forward rather than holds you back, because you're not getting that.
Yeah, it's it's like a real balance, isn't it? Because you may be onto something and you're met with resistance, but then you have to be self-aware enough to know, is this the resistance going to help me grow, or is this resistance to tell me I'm on the wrong path? You see what I mean? Because I need the resistance in order to grow against. It's called perturbation. There's this sort of thing about pressure and how you grow under the pressure. And all there's going, but this doesn't feel right. Because this is what it's all about, is just going by the feeling. And I've done many things where I feel like this doesn't feel right. Maybe it's because I need to grow through this, and I need to really pause for a moment. Like we had a few moments just to breathe, to allow space for a moment. And when you do that, you listen to yourself, go, look, I need to honor this. And if you feel like it's that push rather than something that this is what you want to do, then you have to honor that and go, right, this wasn't the right choice. And if you say no to it and you feel this, relief, it's like, okay, get back to focus on what it is I want to do. And there's going to be resistance, and there's going to be other type of resistance. It's like knowing this. You've got to know as you go through this journey to understand what that is for you. It's not just so simple. It's not easy. But the more you put yourself out there, the more you jump, the more you're going to learn what that is, the more you know how to listen to yourself. Because a lot of us have forgotten how to listen to that inner genius. Mm-hmm. And I go back to the relationship you had with your childhood is what you have with life. And, when a child goes through trauma, we were speaking about this, right? There's children who go through this. They want to meet the needs of their parents, right? Because love for them is like an oxygen. And to feel like this is compromise or going to be taken away, they need that love. And if the parent is not conscious enough, they will take that child's offering and, suck it out of them, their energy, rather than going, no, mummy has got this or daddy's got this. You go and be you. So the child doesn't have to focus on, I've got to give, so I don't have the love taken away from me. They can go into themselves, go, it's there. Now I can listen to myself, because the child didn't have the opportunity to hear themselves, and they're always in scarcity, like maybe this love's going to get taken away. So we forget how to listen to ourselves.
And so how does that translate now to the rest of the world then?
In what?
For that person, for example.
Oh, how does it show up?
Yeah, how
well,
would it show
because if your relationship to your childhood is what you have with life, and the relationship you have with your parents is what you have with the world, it's how that reflects. Because imagine that's your model of the world as you grow up. And so that program, the subconscious, is running in the background. You've developed, you made decisions based on those moments that define your reality. Mm-hmm. And everything just stacks on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. Based on that story you tell yourself. And that story you tell yourself has to be confirmed or reinforced in a way by seeing what you want to see to reinforce that story.
So you basically have like a focused vision to confirm it, because this is what you've been programmed to see.
Yeah.
And this is how you recreate your reality.
Yeah, that's because we're dealing with 200 million bits of data that pass through our 5 senses every single day. And in order we all have our own reality, right? But why do we all have our own reality? We're all in the same space, right? We're in the same world, but why do you see things differently than how I see things? You know, if there's an accident that happens, you have 10 witnesses. If you interviewed each person, they'd have their own account to what happened. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because we're all deleting information, distorting it, because we're deleting that information. So we see our own reality based on our beliefs, our values. We have our own filtering system, because we've got, it's 200 million bits of data. We have to break it down. But what is making that decision? What is breaking it down to what? So if you have a story that's limiting you in some way, you're going to see the world in some limiting way, because it serves you to keep you safe in some aspects. You think you've got a problem and go, it doesn't serve me in any way. It does serve you to protect you from something, until you go back to that core moment. When I coach a client, I go way back when, go to the earliest moment when it happened. Sometimes it's like they're a baby or something. And they go, well, what happened in that moment? It's like, well, that happened. Well, you made it mean this. And they go, oh my goodness, that explains da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so it has this like domino effect. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I kind of go back in time, because what is time? It's a construct. You go back to your past moment, you look at that time it happened, you see how it's affecting your present moment. And it's like when you transform that past moment in the childhood, it has this sort of domino effect.
Absolutely.
And suddenly it affects it affects your future, because your future is determined by your past.
Yep.
And it just keeps repeating itself. And as we know this stuff, but it's one thing knowing it, and it's one thing actually going, well, what is controlling my future by knowing what my past is? And most, you're too close to yourself. You can't see. You're too close to yourself. A fish, if you go to a fish and go, house of water, the fish is going to say, what's water? If a fish could talk, of course. And if a fish is talking to you, probably need to talk to somebody. But you see what I mean? It's like we're too close to ourselves. That's why we go to people who are trained in order to see the stories that you're saying to yourself, to go, where did that belief come from? Where did it all stem from? Because we think it's truth. We think it's our reality. And if you're not having the life that you want, or you're not liking it, well, you can change it. Because if you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep on getting what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. But what makes you different from the other coaches?
Oh, well, it all comes down to me doing the work of myself to know me. What makes me different is because I'm just different. We all have a unique fingerprint, right? And the more I am who I am, the more I'll show up as I am, if that makes sense. The more you can be, the more you'll stand out. And that's what it is. It's cleaning the layers.
But it's like it's challenging the societal ideas where we are actually all fitting into a certain system. So it's almost like a certain outbreak from the conformative way of like being similar to others, and actually creating then your own reality, right? And then what differentiates that? What differentiates being like everyone else in the system where there is societal norms, where we all kind of like, part of the whole, which is the communal feeling of being part of the society, not mind denial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of like see yourself as a separate entity. Does that not separate you from the rest?
If you see yourself as a separate entity, if you see it like you can never be separate. Like if I understand that you have the sea as we have out there, we're all the sea and we're all a wave in the sea. So you can see a separate wave that's still part of the sea. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So as much as I will know who I am, I'm standing out because I'm owning who I am. But I've got to realize I'm also part of the collective consciousness. And whatever I want to put into the conscious soup that we all drink from, what do I want to put in that soup for the next generation that takes from that collective consciousness soup, if you want to look at it in that way. So it's like, what would I want to put out there? If I can at least be more who I am and I stand out and I can have this message, it allows other people to stand up for who they are, to know who they are, so they can better themselves. And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like sort of ultimate freedom. Ultimate freedom is to know who you are, to find what it is you want to do, and really step up and show others how to do that. Because we've been conditioned since being children, the school, the parents are this and this and this, and then it's their parents. You're like, who do you think you are? Like, who do you really know who you are? Do people know who they are? And that's the journey. It's going, well, I want to know who I am. I just like, what else is the point of being on here? So it's like we have to unlearn everything. And whatever way people do that, if they go on, spiritual retreats, ayahuascas, DMT, coaching, it's all something to understand how you've been programmed for you to go, I don't want to be run by a program anymore. I want to have free will. Because people think they have free will, but they're running from a program that's already made decisions when they were a child. So you're just making the same decision based on that one decision you made because of that moment.
But that sounds like a very big responsibility to take on.
Well, yeah.
And that's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
Because it's almost easier to give that responsibility away to parents, to society, to whatever.
You hit the nail on the head.
And here you are taking responsibility for who you are.
That's the toughest thing, because you know what? It's so much easier to blame.
Exactly my point.
It's just like, I was a blamer. I would literally as a child shout to the skies, because I lost my mother when I was 9, right? And anything that was like tough, because it felt tough as a child. I had ear problems. I was in pain. I felt like I was alone a lot. I was, challenged by my siblings, and my dad was traveling a lot. So we had, it was just, it felt like a lot going on. I remember going to skies going, why God, why mum, and all that sort of stuff, blaming. It was like a release in a way. And as a child, it's very hard to comprehend it. But we're mostly adults still acting like children, right? We're still children dressed up in adult bodies, We can sort of hide it very well. But really that inner child is still expressing that whatever happened back then. And we haven't really addressed it because most people don't know how to have the tools to be able to do it. Where are you taught it in school? No, clearly not. You taught it by your parents? No. So where do you pick it up from? Personal development. I was talking personal development is like the manual to know who you are, because you get your iPhone, you get your laptop. What does that come with? A manual, how to use the bloody thing. But with us, we're not given anything. We're the most powerful blooming machine there is. I say machine, but you get the point, right? We're not given that.
Biological machine.
Yeah, biological machine. We're meat-making machines. So it's, how do I use this powerful thing that we have? Why are the successful so successful? Because they managed to go in and find how to use this powerful thing. And this is what it's about. This is why you're doing what you're doing, is to allow other people to say, look, here is the manual. you have a choice. Open it or don't open it. It's entirely up to you. Do you want to know who you are or not know who you are? Do you want to be run by this machine or not run by this machine?
It's like the blue pill or the red pill.
Yeah, it's like who's running who? We all think that we're running the show, but we're not. It's a subconscious mind that's far more powerful. Like 95% of what we do is governed by our habits. And our habits are defined by our subconscious. And that's really what's running the show. I've kind of gone off track with what I was talking about before. I'd love to have gone back into it.
It's okay, it's perfect.
But we are going where we're going, right? And going to the childhood part where I came from, the blaming.
Mm-hmm.
See, the blaming part is so much easier. If you have less choice. People think if you take responsibility, you have less choice. It's like, I've got to be held to this. But responsibility gives you more choices. Because if for example, hearing this from Sadhguru, if a pen is dropped on the floor, and I took no responsibility for it, what's my choice about the pen?
What's your involvement in it?
Yeah, well, what's
your action?
Well, if I take no responsibility for it, I'm just going to walk past it like it's not there, right? But if I take full responsibility of it, I can pick it up, I could kick it, I could do a number of things because I'm taking responsibility for it. Or if there's someone outside screaming, I take no responsibility for it. I'm just going to be doing nothing. If I take responsibility, I could call the police, I could go outside. You see what I mean? There's many more choices.
You're actually owning the reality then.
I'm owning reality. I'm choosing what to do. And that's the thing, most people do not want to take responsibility because they've been stuck in a place of blame. It's easy to blame your parents, and sometimes there's a satisfaction of, you see, my life is so terrible, it's because of you. You see what you've done? You see what I mean? It's a victim mentality. And you go, well, okay, you're right. You argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, what kind of life do you want? If you want to do that, then go ahead, just do it. If you want to blame. But then don't expect to get X, Y, Z. If you suddenly take full responsibility, then you have to have that hard look at yourself because it's always been like this, and you start going, oh, wait a minute. Oh my God, I'm not perfect. So what is going on here? And then, but when you start doing that, and you go, right, okay, what can I do about this? There's so many resources out there. Let's find out what's going on. And when you do this, that's when you find out who you are. That's when you get real freedom. And you're gonna touch some painful points. It's gonna be really tough. When I was an actor, before doing this, it was about removing the mask. It was
removing the mask?
Removing the mask, because we all put a mask on. We put this facade. Right, we want to protect ourselves in some way, right?
Okay.
And we show up, this is what people want to see. This is okay, good. I don't want to be rejected. I want people to like me. I want to, and then we have to pretend to be someone in order to feel like we can be accepted. And I was saying before, like there's a world out there trying to tell you who you are, and there's a world in here trying to tell you who you are, because we feel like we're not enough. And that's the control of it. And if you suddenly claim who you are and say, I am enough, I am worthy, I don't need for no one, I'm taking full responsibility, then no one can control you. No one can manipulate you. And that's when you're a victim, you're going to be manipulated, controlled left, right, and center because you don't think you're enough. You look at everything else and then you're distracted and you just become sort of unconscious. You're just bouncing around and you never really contribute to this world. If you're not giving anything to anyone to make people's lives better in some way, then what's the point of being here? You never really get real fulfillment. And especially how many distractions are in the world, what's going on. This is the time now where you really need to know who you are and find out where your place is in this world and what you can do to give back in some way. Because that's all there is.
Fair enough. All right.
Well, because, yeah, That's, Eckhart Tolle, the power of now.
Yeah, very powerful. You see, what I'm noticing here is that, like, the path that you are on and I am on, of self-development, it was a lot more, I would say, I wouldn't say harder, but those that started first, like Eckhart Tolle, Louise Hay, and Donald Walsh, and Robin Sharma, and all of those, I would say, pioneers of this movement, as you would call it, right? It was, and Tony Robbins, of course, it was a lot more difficult in those days to actually kind of like penetrate and sift through all of those conditionings, because life coaches were seen more, I don't know, maybe they were seen.
Well, it was the idea of like, even when I was working in London, I remember I was running nightclubs in my 20s, completely off the rails, right? And I remember seeing someone reading, literally, I swear I saw like self-help on the book on the train. I was looking, going, why would they show people that they need help? It felt a bit like weird.
Why would they show people?
Yeah, and it was like weakness.
Yeah.
And when I work with a lot of women about, the strength is in vulnerability. When you're vulnerable, there's so much power in that. But people get it so wrong. Like, if I show that I'm weak, and it's not true. Vulnerability has so much power to it, because when someone shows vulnerability, especially for women, like the feminine energy, if it shows up in vulnerability, the masculine can come out. A man can show up fully as who they are. And especially in this moment where we feel there's a disconnect because women are stepping into their power, it's this time right now, they feel like they may need to leave that vulnerability behind. And I think that's not, it would be best to step into that and know who you are through the vulnerability, and then to show the vulnerability, right? We never had this sort of space before to know how to show our emotions. And I think we've got to honor, we all have that duality, the masculine and the feminine within us. And if you honor it through vulnerability, you get to allow yourself to heal by showing your own vulnerability, by opening yourself up. And that is what it is. It's expressing yourself is to be vulnerable. And the thing is, the two core fears I mentioned is, the fear of being rejected and the fear of not being loved. To show yourself up to vulnerability would be to show it your two core fears that we all share. Yes. Yeah, which is the toughest thing. But are you going to really live in fear for the rest of your life?
Most people do.
Yeah, and that's like, well, that's a crying shame. Because how can you ever really express who you truly are if you're living in fear? And what's on the other side of fear? Everything. Your dreams, whatever you want it to be. So it's, if I'm doing a talk or whatever it might be, it's to inspire people really to find out who they are within themselves. And once they do that, they can then go, right, what is it I would love to go after? Now I've sort of found out who I am, or I'm starting to test this out and see this powerful thing I've got within me. Where do I want to take this? And then the journey really starts. It's like you're unconscious and then you wake up. I remember that moment, it's sort of just waking up to it. It's like you're not dead, but you're just running from the program. And then you wake up and you're like, wow, okay, I'm awake. What do I want to do with this thing? And now you're just sort of learning to walk again. And what do you do when you're learning to walk? You're going to fall flat on your face. And you get back up again. And you fall again. And you get up again. That's what you do once you wake up again, because you're relearning who you are. And people are so afraid to sort of fail or fall over. But, if you were scared as a child to fall over, you would never get up to walk, and you'd still be crawling now.
But this is something that we are fed from when we're little. Like, be careful, you're going to fall, you're going to hurt. I mean, like, if you try this out, then you can fail, and failure is bad. And, this is all of this fear-based.
And where's that coming from?
Conditioning.
The conditioning, because it's the parents, right, projecting onto the child
their own fears.
Of their parents' fears.
Oh, surely. And that's something that's ancestral.
And it's up to you to take responsibility to nip it in the bud and go, wait a minute, do I want to pass this on to the next generation? Or do I want to kind of go, right, I want to stop this and create something else? Because what happens when you live in fear, you react, and then you have situations that happen in the world today that's still happening. if it's war or, violence and things like this. And the only thing that's going to shift that is, a consciousness shift. And that's sort of my dharma in a way, is to raise the level of consciousness if I can, whilst I'm learning about who I am through my teachings, because I know I'm an example of it. And that's how I kind of got into it, through my own pain, right? It's that own pain of, why am I suffering so much? And sometimes we will meet someone in our lives who will trigger us to find that pain, right? We may want to resent and blame that person. It's going like, no, I'm doing this work. It's allowing me to, because we're creatures of, we want to move away from pain towards pleasure, right? That's who we are as human beings. We want to move away from pain towards pleasure. So when something comes in your life and you feel like it's causing you pain, it's either, do you stay in that place of pain, or do you utilize and go, where is that pain coming from? Take full responsibility for it. What is this teaching me? Because there's people watching this right now who are probably going through some pain, right? Or it's challenging their life. And it's like, what do you want to gain from it? What do you want to learn from it? And that's what got me into it. Because I know you asked me this question. I feel like I need to go back into it. I don't usually do things in the usual format, as you can tell. I sort of go here, there, and everywhere. But we'll get there in the end. Bear with us, everyone. So it's
there's so much to explore. That's all.
Yeah, I just see it because when I went through my pain, I was meeting someone that showed up something within my childhood that I hadn't addressed yet.
Yeah.
And as much as it's painful, that was a fuel for me to know where that pain was coming from. I didn't know it really at the time, but I was just like, I need to, what is going on? And the more research, that fueled me to get insane awareness at such a quick
Oh, what a
time.
blessing.
It
Huh?
really was, but you don't see it at the bloody time, right? But it's, the wisdom is having the hindsight. And I know Napoleon Hill says this quote, every adversity, every failure brings with it a seed of opportunity or something. I've completely messed up that quote.
No, but the essence.
But the essence is there. Thank you very much. It's there, that knowing that you think you're going through that tough time, you need that in order to know who you are. And the worse it is, like when you hit rock bottom, which I have done in my life, at least you know it's solid.
So there's some
And
kind
you
of
can build from
certainty
that.
there.
Yeah, but it's like you're kind of knowing that the program you're running on is an old program. And you get to then observe, go, well, I'm now conscious that this program is running into the ground. What do I want to do about this? And some people can go either way and go out and completely take themselves out of the game. Or you go, right, I've got another opportunity here. What do I want to do? And again, personal development, self-development is to go, right, what is going on here? I want to learn. And you go to mentors, or you go to all the other extremities and different modalities I mentioned. And then you get to rebuild again. As the gurus would say, we're born twice. If you're fortunate enough, you're born the first time, which is easier. And then you build your house, right? And then the second birth is to basically consciously destroy your house and rebuild it again.
It's like the death of the ego.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. It's that who you think you are, that you're scared
Little boys and
to
girls.
hell to basically destroy our identity of who we think we are. It's the scariest thing, because what is there? That's all we know. And to get rid of that, to start again, build the house to destroy it, is it's very frightening. But then again, after that,
So fear really is the catalyst. Pain is a catalyst.
yeah, it's that's the alchemy, right? It's the transferring. It's being able to take that and transform it into something incredible, right? It's that pain and transfer it into your higher self, to know how to listen to your higher self. And I've got to say that whatever I'm saying right now, advice and things like this, believe it and don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Experience it yourself. Because I did a lot of these Facebook Lives, and I did one about advice I got from a real leader, right? And he talked about narcissism, how it doesn't exist, how we all have about 4,000 traits, 4,000 something like around that number, and we all share it, and we all give it some other form, right? So narcissism doesn't really exist. Now, the problem about hearing something like that, especially if you're in a situation where someone could be narcissistic or not, he has a level of understanding that led to that conclusion.
So as an experience.
Well, he's saying that from a world that he understands. Now, if you just stepped into a room and hearing that, you don't have the concept that led him to get to that conclusion. So you could take that and go, oh, and use it to keep you in a destructive relationship. Because imagine you feel like you're in this relationship that's not maybe serving you any longer, right? You know, the spiritual contract is done, but you're somehow staying in there, and it's maybe you're losing confidence, you're losing who you are, you could be dissolving in some way. But you hear advice like that, and you use it to justify, to keep yourself where you are, because someone said that. Not freeing you, because you're taking that advice to mean something you want it to mean. And that's the thing about advice that's so detrimental, because it's coming from their world and their understanding. We can take from our world and our understanding and use it in a way to keep us in a situation that no longer serves us. So I always say, believe me, don't believe me. It's all
it's actually
subjective.
Better. Yeah, that's the thing. It's actually better when people take it on and learn themselves. But in the end of the day, the underlying laws are all the same. When you tap into that higher self-consciousness, as you were talking about, which is really the part of us that is not bound, part of us that is free, part of us that is creative, right? This is where we all can meet. As long as we're in our ego, we keep separate from the other person, and we actually don't grow. We build up wall upon wall upon wall of protection, and in the end, alienate ourselves from experiencing the world for what it's meant to be, right? The playground of ecstatic moments, right?
It's the thing about the ego, as Wayne Dyer says, edging God out.
Yes.
We need the ego.
Yeah, 100%.
Like the ego, however we define it, right? As soon as we make a word about it, it becomes this thing. Now, however you want to see and use the ego in order to, for example, boundaries, it's knowing who you are and knowing how to interact with other people. Now, we want to be separate because we want to be an individual, but we also want to be able to communicate and be as one in some way, right? We want to be collective. Now, what do you think the ego is there to do? It's to
make a choice.
Well, it's to protect you in some way. So that's why it's great, because it's there to protect you. But at least be aware of the fact it's there to protect you, because that primitive part of us, we're talking about it, like the amygdala that is there, fight or flight, this automated response. And I was saying about, I feel that like Neanderthalness in me when I'm doing competitive games or something. It comes out, right? It's like and I'm aware of it. It's like it takes over because it feels like it's stronger than my own higher self. Or it takes me in a different direction, and it's like, wow, it's scary how quickly it can go in and hijack your brain, right? It kind of hijacks you, and then you come out of it going, where was I for that moment? You see what I mean? And that's when the ego seems to play up, because you're in that sort of reptilian part where you're fight or flight.
Which is a survival mode,
yes.
which protects our existence.
Yeah, well, you got to honour it, because otherwise, if it wasn't there, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. And I see it as, the fearful survives. If you're going back to the Neanderthal times, there's a bush, right? And the caveman walks past it, and the one that just sees it blowing, moving, and goes, oh, it's fine. There's a saber-toothed tiger behind it, and, eats it. He's out the gene pool now, right? The non-fearful one. The fearful one who's like, no, I'm going to stay away from that, right? Carries on and spreads that on, and da-da-da-da-da, right? So that gets put into us. So we're here because of that sort of survival, that fearful time. But obviously there's no saber-toothed tigers to run away from. I was just going to
say, but our environment changes. And so our genes mutate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they mutate from the fear-based scenario into a more love-based scenario if you choose it to be so, right? So because we are not immediately threatened in our environment anymore, we don't have to fight for our survival every 5 seconds as we used to.
Yeah.
Now this is a different level up in consciousness, right?
Yeah. But that's what I mean by when you put in different environments, the environment is stronger than willpower. And as Bruce Lipton says as far better than I could, how our genes, genetics literally change based on the environment. So if you want to change, the best way to really make a transformation is put yourself out into an environment that you want to be in, that you can see being productive and conducive to the path you want to be on. Surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to be doing, right? That's because you shift at a genetic level. It makes it that much easier, right? So I see that really, that's why, go to seminars and events, because they really do make a shift within your genetics, or, just surround yourself with these people as much as you can. If you find yourself in a negative environment, where you feel it's suppressing you in some way, then you've got to take responsibility for it and go, right, I'm going to step away from it. Because we have this whole, you can look at it as this tribal mentality. It's very hard to leave your tribe, because back then if you left your tribe, you would be dead, right? So it's very hard to leave your friends and go out on your own to find new peers and things like this, because our old fear is there. This is what kept us alive up to this point, but it's not there anymore. We don't need to worry, and this is what this is about. When you hear this information, you go, oh, I'm aware, I have a choice. I'm not actually going to die. I can do this. And if you don't make that choice, you stay where you are, don't expect anything to change. And people listening to this for this long, I think that are the type of people who do want to make a shift and do want to do something. And so keep listening to things like this. Keep seeing not what people say, but what it is they do. Like when people go to university to learn business from a guy who's teaching from a book of business, but they've never done business before. You want to learn from that, or do you want to go learn from someone who's done business and made successful businesses? You see what I mean? It's like, don't worry about what people say, just see what they actually do. That really defines who they are.
That's true.
So.
Well, it's been very insightful. I'm sure we could talk for hours.
I thought we have.
This topic. Thank you for being with us, and please feel free to leave your comments, and Alex's information will be below our link, and hopefully there's more to come, right? Would there be a last message for the audience? What would you like to leave them with?
Okay, so the final message, it's to know that the journey continues, and there is whatever you're going through right now, the storm, it doesn't last forever, and you can become resourceful. It's all out there, and wherever you put your focus, that will expand. So know what it is does work, put more focus on it, and what's not, what you don't like, take your focus away from that and start to find the solutions. Because if you put your focus on the problems, that will expand. You put your focus on the solutions, that will expand. So it really depends where you decide to put your focus.
Pretty good message. Something to live with.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you for staying tuned. See you soon.